I want you to meet a professional deal maker, someone who bought multiple businesses, put them all together, sold them for an 8-figure sum, all inside 3 years. This is how he did it. We're going to start off today with my very special guest, David Watt, who was on Mastermind in 2019, did his first acquisition in 2018, and has been on quite a journey. And I've asked him to come along to tell us about the highs and the lows, the frustrating parts as well as the good parts. So you get the warts and all story of some. Actually, David, give us some headline numbers. So when you started, so you started with an existing business.
Yeah. So my wife and I started out of our spare room a little domiciliary care business because I was sick of travelling around the country for big corporates and making them lots of money. And I saw it as an opportunity. And God, 10 years later, I was still running a small little business. That business was paying for holidays and kids and stuff. It was about 2 million of turnover. And then a friend of mine's company up in Gloucestershire, I live in Winchester in Hampshire, he was going through a divorce, was going to close his little care company down. They were about 800,000 of turnover, and I just instinctively came up with a no money down deal structure because I had no money to give him. But we came up with an earn out type structure. And I figured out this is a hell of a lot easier than actually growing your business organically. Because in one deal, basically another 40% of turnover got added on. And as I was driving up and down the motorway to Gloucestershire, because I was the only person running the business, so I was doing the integration, I was listening to your podcasts. And then circumstances led me to do 2 further acquisitions within 3 months. One because a big corporate in our sector, I do domiciliary care, looking after people in their elderly people in their own homes. A big company called Allied went into administration about that time just before Christmas, 2018, and the local authority basically took the contract off them and said, "Would you want it? Cheaply transfer all the staff." So although I didn't broker that deal, it was an acquisition of their staff and the contracts for nothing. And that was 3 days before Christmas in 2018. And then in the January, a neighbouring authority said something similar. There's a provider who's a charity losing money. Would you like their business? So within 3 months, I'd done 3 acquisitions, or 4 months, I'd done 3 acquisitions. And so I figured I'd better come and learn how to do it properly. So I joined the Mastermind in 2019.
You're doing pretty well.
I went grey and put on weight because I was the only guy doing everything. They came with a few management layer staff, but not good quality people.
So the starting point then was 2 million of annual revenue.
Yep.
And it was your wife actively involved in the business?
She was.
Yeah.
Not at the point of those acquisitions. So for the first 5 or 6 years, then we had kids, and honestly, I hope she doesn't ever watch this video. I think the business accelerated when it wasn't a 2 decision maker business.
Well, it's also when you've got 2 decision makers who
are married,
live in the same house. You're not going to get potentially that sort of lively debate, which you can have with someone that you're more detached from.
Exactly. So she had exited by the time we did the first acquisition, and then coming and doing the course and getting a bit more savvy around the techniques and being more proactive in generating off-market opportunities, I went on a bit of a buying frenzy. So over a period of 4 years, between September 18 and September last year, I think I did about 19 deals, and we grew the group from that original 2 million, 2 branches, one in Southampton, one in Basingstoke, to about 17 branches and just shy of 20 million of turnover. And then I exited that business to a trade sale in end of September last year. It had self-financed through deferred consideration. Yeah. A lot of that had already been paid out.
And grown in value as well.
And grown in value. And we had some contract wins. Not all of those acquisitions worked. I had 2 that completely failed and went effectively to 0 value, one of which I bought for £1, so it was a bit of a take a chance. Mm-hmm. And the other I'd paid decent money, £300,000 or £400,000 for, and it also failed. And because it's a service-based business, it really comes down to staff retention. And we learnt some lessons out of that in terms of our onboarding process, the way we approached it, and also the type of business we want. You know, the one that was decent value, doing very well, that went to zero, was the owners were so beloved that the staff just couldn't work for a corporate. And by that stage, we were a corporate with processes and ways of doing things. But all the others were successful to different extent. And during that journey, I brought on, you know, consciously and through discussions with yourself, brought on a really high caliber management team. You know, at that stage, it wasn't a definite target to sell at that point. We had, you know, the ability, and I built a team to go to 50 million of turnover. So I was able, consciously and with a lot of hard work, to exit myself from the day-to-day operations. I brought in a out-of-sector chief executive that had worked in the fitness industry, managing hundreds of gyms. So good multi-site management through data rather than emotions, and good financial acumen. I brought in a great finance director, promoted, actually the girl that I acquired from that very first acquisition is now ops director and just killing it. So, you know, I was able to become focused purely on having lots of cups of coffees with targets, doing the negotiations of the deals, talking with banks where it was needed, and not run the business. But that took a lot of hard work to get to that stage. So I had a really good team, and they were able to get better and better and learn a lot of lessons through the integration. An eventual, I know that there's a lot of different thoughts around whether you keep separate brands and the level of integration. We integrated across the brand, centralized finance, centralized payroll, centralized recruitment, HR, and we standardized the branch level operating model. So, you know, we could see a lot of fat that was sitting in the traditional mum and pop operations that could be stripped out, and we could therefore not only just get the multiple arbitrage, but actually get a profit improvement in the acquisitions as well.
So I think what people will want to know, and I think the themes of our conversations over the last few months will be about building that management team, and about how you did so many deals in such a short space of time, and how you just juggled all of those. The integration. I know that you did some fundraising as well. What was the level of fundraising?
So while we still thought we had time to run, I started a process. I brought in some external consultants because although my finance director is very good at sort of operational level finance, going to potential funders, quality of modelling they require to make those lending decisions is quite high. So I brought in some consultants.
Buying a business is just so rewarding, and I put together a free training showing you exactly how I do it. If you look in the video description below this video, there is a link. You click the link, you're taken through to the training, watch the training, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully.
Somebody wise once said to me, you sell when people want to buy, not when you're ready to sell. And there is a very acquisitive corporate in our sector with a £400 million private equity fund out of New York backing them. No, they've been given 400 to do acquisitions, and they were very acquisitive. I bought a distressed acquisition up in Manchester for £1. It was loss making. We've turned it around. It's doing £30,000 a month of EBITDA now, but it's Manchester. It's a long way from where we are. So I phoned these guys up and said, would you be interested in just buying this branch? And they said, look, really, we're now so big, we're not interested in individual branch sales. It doesn't move the needle for us, but would you be interested in a conversation about the whole business? I went, no, not doing that. And then I thought about it and spoke with my wife. I went, why not? So we did that deal. We did the sale deal in 4 months from woe to go, and simultaneously, because I wanted to maximise the sale, I was doing 2 acquisitions. So I was doing 2 acquisitions and the sale, all the legals and due diligence both ways, contracts both ways, and we had to time it within 3 days of each other to do the 2 acquisitions and the sale. But at the end of the day, you know, we had structured a deal that put some money in my pocket on day one with a 15-month earn-out that runs out in December this year.
So I think the time scale is amazing. 4 years, start to finish. I think that people are going to be very interested about what you had to go through with the fundraise, because I think that's very relevant to a lot of people right now, and also what you learned from the exit.
Yep.
And I think you're absolutely right to de-risk, because you could keep on rolling the dice and getting bigger and bigger, and then something, you never know what's around the corner. Right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, great.
And I know that you say that during the Mastermind, is that having a portfolio of businesses that you can then keep adding to and then selling and having capital events. But our model was a unified buy and build, single brand. It wasn't something I could sell bits off.
Yes.
So it was kind of sell the whole thing and go again. So in the deal I structured with this corporate, the conversations were around they're buying, in domiciliary care, it's about 10,000 small mum and pop operators. 3,000 of them are focused on kids or specialist learning disabilities, so we weren't in that space, but there's about 7,000. There's one in every town. Then there's a tier of mid-tier, more than about 2 or 3 branches, which was we then got into, and then there's 6 or 7 big corporates that are doing 100 million turnover. So 100 million and above. So they're interested in buying us, they're not interested in the tier, so they were quite open and happy for us to structure the deal that, except within a very tight radius of the branches we've sold them, there's no problem with me going again. And I kept the brand, I kept a number of my key management team, and I have the ability in parallel with the earn-out to be doing other acquisitions.
Which is quite an incredible outcome, really, because then you can take all that knowledge that you've got and that experience and do it all again, and also presumably sell to them. Again.
That's their thinking. If you've done this in 4 years, we'll come and visit you again in another 4 years and buy you again. But I think Felix Dennis in his book talked about balancing their need versus your greed. And their need is just to buy what we had. There aren't that many mid-tier players for them to buy. So I had quite a lot of leverage in the negotiation. Some things I found I couldn't because it was driven by the covenants and the regulations of their lenders. So, for example, we started off at X amount deferred. That grew, driven by things, and there was no negotiating that away. There was a take it or leave it deal. So I had to leave quite a lot on the table. It's only 15 months. I was confident on the earn-out, so I didn't.
We can live with 15 months, can't we?
Yeah,
it's
not 4 years or 5 years.
No.
So that wasn't moving. Whereas a lot of the stuff around get out of my way while I go again, they just went, yeah, fine. Because they were greedy to get what we had. Because they've got a monkey on their back saying, grow, grow, grow. We've given you this 400 million, grow, grow, grow. And they're doing 10 of these in Germany and other places as well. So, they had need. So,
yeah, no, it's fantastic. So let's go right back to the beginning. Tell us about some of the early acquisitions and what you'd have done differently with the benefit of hindsight. So if you look back to the start of the 4-year journey, what would you have done differently if you could go back in time and do it again?
If I could do it again with a little bit more cash, I would have had more people doing the integration, because me doing the integration in the early days was suboptimal. Because whilst I was reasonably good at the sector, I didn't speak the language of carers.
Yeah.
I've never been a carer. I came from a corporate background. We just set up our business from scratch. Whereas people that have come up from being carers to management roles can do the integration better than I can. And I've got that now, but it took a while to be able to have the headroom to build that in.
And with the integration, I guess the easier part of the integration is the financials and those sort
cultural integration.
Yeah, but it's the people, isn't it? That's the hard part.
Yeah. So that's something I'd do better, is put more attention to the people and cultural integration than, finance systems and IT systems you can just roll out. And in fact, we over the first 10 years of the life of the business, we had built pretty good people, processes and systems. And it was therefore surprising when I did that first acquisition, how easily that bolted in. We just rolled out our people, processes and systems. It was the cultural thing that would always cause some problems. And 2 failed because of culture and because we didn't build the trust with those.
And how many staff did you have at the end?
900. None of those are full time. A lot of them are in care. A lot of people are on working tax credits. So if they work more than 16 hours per week, they reduce their benefits. So we get a lot of people who want to work 16 hours. We also recently got one of the care international recruitment visa authorizations from the Home Office, so we can actually bring in workers from overseas, which we'd never really done before. But each one of those wants to work 50 or 60 hours a week and send lots of money home. So keeping a balance, we don't want to go all the way down there, but it does give you more capacity.
So I think one of the things we can talk about as well is how you managed your personal space. Because if you've got 900 staff, every single day you've got people quitting, every single day you're recruiting. Every single day there's a grievance.
Yeah.
There's, what did Rob have this morning? What did you have this morning?
One guy pinned another guy up against the wall.
Yeah. You have a fight every week or so. Yeah. So you've got all these things happening, but how did you keep your head clear of
So
that?
2.5 years ago, I took a big stretch and paid more and gave a small slice of a couple of percentage points of equity to a guy that I brought in as chief exec, and it took him about a year. Typical ex-corporate guy. He came in and had a very corporate approach to some things, including spending my money, and some projects that he spent money on didn't work, but in the first year, he then very quickly got his head around the sector and the way of working and became a little bit more entrepreneurial and cost aware as well. So by bringing him in, it was a definite, I'm the chairman, I do the M&A type stuff, you run the business. I don't want to run the business anymore. And that's why I'm paying you the big salary.
So what subjects would reach your attention?
So basically, since I brought him in, well, after his sort of initial learning period, I have a monthly formal board meeting and I have a one to 2 hour weekly touch base with the exec.
When buying a business, you need a great lawyer on your team. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews and his details are on the screen.
And we already had good, but he's really improved. We have automated management metrics around all of the operational facets and all the financial, and it comes out automated by email once a week for the prior week, and it covers every branch and every metric you can imagine. And it's too much data to take in, but it does automatically highlight when things are out of company curve.
Yeah.
And you can just have the conversation with the management team, whether it's a HR issue or whether it's an operating issue or the Care Quality Commission has done an inspection.
So all of that information was presented to you before your board meeting?
Yeah.
So you had time to digest it
Yep.
and then focus on the important points.
Yeah.
And then after that board meeting, you could go back to doing the deals.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and look, it's not as clean cut as that. Yes, occasionally things would reach in.
Sure.
Particularly as it impacted on the earnout now. I'm obviously very cognizant of some of the terms in the earnout that I want. Don't do that. Don't go near that.
Yes.
Some of them are related to maintaining quality ratings with the regulator.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very interested in making sure that we maintain those because it would impact on the earnout. But generally, he's now built a really good team. We've got a HR director that's really good. We've got a finance director that's really good. So I'm pretty confident that the team, but it takes years to build the people that you can trust. I have gone through a lot of managers in the 14 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what does that top team look like? So you've got your CEO.
So as I said, we've centralised finance, recruitment, payroll, HR, and obviously the chief exec. And so it's effectively those heads: chief exec, head of finance with the payroll and accounting team. Dealing with local authorities is a right ball ache, so you need a fairly big ARAP team. HR director. If we were going to keep growing, I'd probably fill her team out, but at the moment she does a lot of TUPE transfer stuff for acquisitions in. I've got an IT guy and I've got a central data guy who does a lot of the reporting, analytics and stuff like that. So it wasn't a huge head office by any sense, but it is all just overhead. So I'd be buying these businesses, they'd be doing about 14% EBITDA on acquisition. We would strip out the finance and payroll function, make some improvements and get them up above sort of 18 to 21% branch level contribution. But then I've got that big cost sitting in the head office, so that drags us back down to about 14% overall.
And was your head office literally a head office?
Yeah, Southampton.
Yeah, so you weren't people working virtually. No, everyone was sitting in the same
and Peter's,
suite of offices.
He's younger than me. He's sort of late 40s, but he is still old school. He likes to have his team around him, and he likes to, he's built a really good recruitment team that's centralised a lot of the. Because in a branch, recruitment's almost a distraction because you're running the business, but they keep forgetting that new carers is the lifeblood. There's no shortage of old people in the UK to support. It's about having capacity to do that, but they never prioritise it. They prioritise Mrs. Smith needs a call today.
Yes, and then only when you are desperately in need of someone, you're recruiting, and then by that time.
So
it's too
by
late.
centralising the recruiting team, and because he's a sales guy, and because he's run old telesales organisations, he has the boards up, and he has the call volumes, and he has the interview rates, and and he has weekly meetings with the recruitment team, and they are working really hard. So I reckon our recruitment productivity is tripled by bringing that professionalism in.
Which I suppose also, and I know Dan had some experiences with making your ability to service the demand more flexible. I'm not explaining that very well, but it was so if you don't have the staff and someone phones up and says, I've got a, how much do you charge?
Yeah.
And you say, I'm sorry, we don't have the staff. That's a lost opportunity.
Yeah.
So the recruitment is a necessity to allow you to grow in line with market demand.
Yeah, and most of our work is probably 80% is public sector funded, either NHS or local authority. 20 is private, and with the NHS, there's always a waiting list. Or with the council work, so it's not a case of having to go out and do a lot of active marketing. And most of our private clients is word of mouth and reputational. We don't spend a lot of money on that. But the think of that as retail. The wholesale work is the local authority says, I have 600 hours a week of care, unmet need. Yeah. There is nobody that can deliver it. Which ones do you want? And we're just, Mrs. Smith passes away.
So actually recruitment has to be a major focus.
Yeah.
Because if you can say, yes, we'll have all 600.
Correct.
And if you can't say yes, you lose that opportunity.
Yes, and clients are sitting at home that deserve and entitled to and need care and can't get it. And that's just a shortage in our industry and across the NHS.
So what do you know now that you wish you'd known back at the beginning?
Back at the beginning, it was an accident, the first acquisition. The first thing is educate yourself. So I've done your Mastermind group, I've come to events. Every time you learn, go on a course and get other people's experience, you don't just get the course content, what's on a PowerPoint presentation, it's these conversations. I would consider myself a reasonably good deal maker these days, but I still listen to every one of your podcasts as I'm driving around. Because listening to the people you interview, everybody else in a different sector or a different experience, or there's always something to learn. I want to get in contact with that distressed guy because I see with a recession coming, there's going to be a mountain of distressed opportunities. And I'm interested. I've got a good team, not just in the dom care sector, but I've got finance guys, I've got other, my deal team, if you like, that we think we can do some interesting stuff in the distressed and turnaround space.
So what is the next stage then for you?
So I've set up a family investment company for inheritance tax purposes. I've lent money into that. I've bought an accountancy practice, a little one, but with the intent of modernising through technology and process automation. Because I've been doing lots of acquisitions, and every time you talk to a target, they bring their accountant in. The accountant is usually old, grey hair, grey suit, and quill and ink processes. And I'm absolutely convinced that there's a shortage of accountants and accounting professionals in the UK, that with modern technology investment, you can really, and what's her name? You've got a lady that's doing, and there's others. Lives over in Dubai. There's a few millennial age people realising that there's a lot of legs in a buy and build around accountancy practices with modernisation. So I brought in a partner on that, and we're starting to look at accountancy practice roll up. I've got the care, my two branches. I reckon we can do this dom care roll up, but I'll only take a minority shareholding in that, and I'll just do the M&A and be the chairman on that. So this has kind of helped my team take some equity stake in a second go round. And then the third leg of that, underneath the family investment company, is looking for distressed turnaround opportunities through insolvency practitioners and the relationship we have with a lot of the corporate finance people in BDO and RSM and other accountancy practices. So that's what we're doing.
Very good. So you're not retiring then?
I'm too young. I'm 54. I've got younger kids. I've got another 6 years at home with kids at home. So I don't want to be. I've got mates that are starting to retire now, and they don't know what to do with themselves. So I reckon I've got another 10 years, and this is fun. This is actually quite good fun.
Fantastic.